Hello everyone, XV here from youtube.com/XVRogueGaming, bringing you yet another video to help take your game to the next level. Congratulations to this week's winner, Gino Kang, for posting a suggested topic in the comments for last week's tutorial and being subscribed to my channel. This week's video is basic and geared towards new players. On my channel Monday, I'll be releasing the advanced guide to go with this one for players who really want to improve their game. This week's video is all about map awareness. Often I see players get ganked and blame teammates for the death because there was no missing call. While I do my best to always call missing, in reality it's everyone's responsibility to check the map and be aware of their surroundings and their position. When considering map awareness, there are two different aspects, the literal and the figurative, and two different purposes, defensive and offensive. The literal incorporates actively looking at the minimap, and the figurative refers to being able to interpret and infer enemy actions based on what you see. The literal aspect is easy to understand and only moderately difficult to train. To be useful, the minimap has to be able to provide you with information not otherwise readily available on screen. For the most part, this means planting wards, but can also include summoned units like Beastmaster's Hawk from Call of the Wild. Having the vision, however, is useless unless you bother to look. You need to make checking the minimap a habit. I like to use last hits as a benchmark/reminder. Every time I or my lane partner last hit a creep, I immediately check the minimap. This ensures that I don't miss out on gold while still periodically checking the map. After a few games, this reminder will solidify as a habit. It's at this stage that we encounter the next point of failure. Interpreting what you see and trying to extrapolate the enemy's intentions is a relatively time-consuming and mentally taxing affair. So before moving on to the figurative stage in map awareness, I want to talk about the minimap checklist. The minimap checklist is a quick count of what you see that will tell you whether or not you need to actually commit more energy. I use a count method. This is where I assign a number for each lane equal to the number of enemies that are there. For instance, 2, 1, 2. When I quickly check the minimap, what I'm doing is checking the count. If I see 2 people top, 1 person middle, and 2 people in bottom, I know that everyone is present and accounted for. This keeps my checks incredibly brief and my attention in lane where it belongs. When the count is off, however, that's when the figurative elements come into play. Often, just checking the minimap can be enough. Spotting players behind the tree line or wrapping around behind you lets you know that it's not only a gank, but where it's coming from. But what about when it's not so obvious? Sometimes you won't have wards, or the wards you have aren't where you need them to be, not to mention Smoke of Deceit, which circumvents wards entirely. This is where player experience and skill begins to shine. The reality is that leaving your lane to gank is not economically viable unless you score a kill, and even then becomes less and less rewarding the longer you spend out of lane traveling or waiting to strike. Thus, it becomes safe to assume that missing players are heading to the closest possible gank spot. Take a side lane for instance. If an enemy is missing, there are really only 2 viable places for them to be. Either they're ganking middle, or they're backstabbing their own lane. At this point, the count is going to come up short, and thus prompts us to put more effort into our map awareness, specifically considering our position, especially if I'm actually in the missing lane, or middle in this example. A missing middle is a little bit more complicated, as it can roam to either side. Thankfully, there are only so many ways for heroes to navigate through the map, specifically the forest and the river. Assuming we don't have wards, what you want to do is take a moment to compare your position to where your enemy would be coming from. Generally, there will only be 1 to 2 viable exits into your lane. It's at this point that we begin to lean. Leaning refers to editing our position without just abandoning the lane. The goal is to increase the distance between your hero and any place you could be attacked from. In an extreme use of this term, leaning would include falling back to a tower, though normally it's a lot more subtle. A prime example would be a middle player noticing an enemy missing from top and thus leaning towards bottom and favoring their own high ground. This gives them ample warning for enemies coming from the fog and prevents any form of backstab. Subtle adjustments to your position shut down enemy ganks hard and end up impacting their economy massively by wasting their time, gold, and experience by having them leave their lane and return empty-handed. So, while there is more to be said about map awareness, I hope you found this video useful for taking your game to the next level. On my channel Monday, I'll be taking this guide further, discussing offensive and defensive awareness, as well as how to pick targets and bait ganks for easy and punishing turnarounds. Remember that it's you who decide the topic, so be sure to post in the comments below what you'd like to see, and subscribe to my channel to be eligible to win. As always though, if you like this video, please thumbs up, share, and subscribe to Dotacinema and my channel to stay up to date. Until next week, this is XV, signing out.